Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today, where we are lucky enough to be joined by one of our industry experts, Donnie Chai from Dialpad. Our session today is the human element in an AI-driven contact center. We know this is a hot topic, and we are going to be exploring how AI is actually reshaping behaviours, mindsets, and the reality for contact center agents. We're going to talk about the better and the worse. So the session itself, we're hoping will challenge some of those assumptions, some of the noise that we're hearing, and really give some spotlight to some of the nuances of that augmented work, and some real examples of how AI can support more human, empathetic, and intelligent interactions. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. And during that time, with the help of Donnie, we hope the session provides some interesting insights and things for you to think about for your own environment. We will have a couple of polls throughout the session, so be ready for those. And as always, there's a prize for the best question, and Donnie will be the judge of the one at the end. But to round off the session, we'll have Q&A at the end of the webinar. I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact, and I will be your moderator today. Just to quickly run through some general housekeeping with you. Remember, the best way for you to maximise what you get out of this is to interact. If you have questions or comments, put them in there, put them in the chat or the QA feature, because it's your opportunity to, tap into the expertise that we've got online today. You don't need to take too many notes. We'll give you the recording of the webinar as always, and any of the slides that Donnie's happy to give us through, we'll send those afterwards. As I said, let's use that Q&A button. Put something, jot it down when you think of it. If it's relevant to what's actually being discussed at the time, I'll ask it then and there. But if it's something that's more general in nature, we'll keep that until the end. And like I said, we've got a great prize for the best questions. So let's make those questions insightful and challenging. I love that we can challenge Donnie. I know we won't throw him, but there's so much inside and so much insights that Donnie can share with us that let's make it worth our while. If you are listening through headsets or speakers and have any issues with your connection, please utilise the raised hand button on the control panel and one of the team will jump in and try and help. Alternatively, if you look back at your original registration and your invite, it will actually have a number that you can jump into and dial into. I'm going to stop talking because I know the biggest challenge that Donnie and I have when we do these sessions is running out of time because there's so much we can talk about. So I'm going to introduce Donnie. As I said, from Dialpad, our gold partners that do a lot to support the industry. Donnie is the Senior Sales Engineer in ANZ for Dialpad, an absolute font of knowledge when it comes to not only what we're going to talk about, but what he's hearing from other customers. Donnie, awesome to have you with me. Let's get rolling.
Fran, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and an honor to be able to participate in this again. Hi, everyone. My name is Donnie. I've been in this industry for the last 15 years, bouncing around the world of tech, contact centers, and the front lines, the trenches. Now I help businesses bridge that gap with artificial intelligence. I've been where you are, managing teams, navigating the chaos, trying to find better ways to improve the performance of contact centers without burning people out. So these days I help shape AI-powered solutions. We just don't automate tasks, but actually make the human element stronger. And I believe, at least my belief is, no algorithm can replace the heart of great customer service. So today we're going to be talking about our AI and coaching. Hopefully you'll get a story or two about how I balance all of it and what I've heard. And I hope you enjoy the next hour of this webinar. So let's get this show on the road. I really hope we can get through this webinar, everything together today.
There's lots to talk about, Donnie.
Yes. So we're going to kick it off with just a quick poll, just to get everyone thinking about the topic we're looking at today. And really, it's about which of these best describes how your team currently uses AI today? A, you're using it for post-call analysis or summaries. B, live agent coaching. C, QA performance monitoring. D, automating customer interactions. Or E, maybe you're not using AI yet. And I wonder, maybe this, and while you're just trying to figure out this poll, I wonder how many votes we'll get for this. We're not using AI yet, because I imagine there might be still some companies feeling a bit hesitant. Maybe it's probably the learning curve or perceived risk. What do you think, Fran? You reckon there's still some companies out there are still not doing AI?
No, I think there's definitely a number not using it yet. There's lots of conversations that plenty are having. There still is this trepidation sometimes about where to step in. And where's that appetite, still around balancing some of the risk. As you would know, there's a lot of noise in the environment, right? So I
Yeah,
think there is still a concern about people thinking, if I jump in with the wrong thing to start with, what does that do? Am I locked in? Am I
that's right.
going to regret it? Right. So I wouldn't be
The
surprised if there's quite a few that are still at that point.
100%. There's so much unknown with this new technology, like anything, and people are just not sure. It's like, I pay all this money into a tool. Am I going to get the most out of it or not? It's a large investment. It's not like going to the
Yeah.
supermarket and picking something off the shelf, right? Um, yeah, and it's really going to be really interesting.
Okay. Will we
And
look at our results?
wow, look at
Interesting.
that.
Look at that one.
So it's
Okay.
interesting.
And interesting is the B. We've not got anyone doing it for live agent coaching. So I think
Okay.
that's going to be an interesting part of our convo today as well. But equally, it probably reflects, if you think 50%, more than 50%
Mhm.
not using AI yet.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of, sort of discovery phase and
Yep.
stage that people are sort of on that precipice of.
Precipice. Yes, 100%. And this is a great opportunity to kind of just piecing things together and help you with your learning journey anyway. All right. Well, thank you for doing that poll, everyone. Let's get this on the road. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of a story. I like to start off my presentations with this. Now imagine for all of you who run contact centers, you've got your induction groups and new people joining in. It's a Friday afternoon, for example. One of your brand new agents just fresh out of induction. Now they're on the floor answering live calls, and this particular agent's on a live call. Maybe the customer is a little bit irate, a bit furious with another issue, with the product or the service or whatever it might be. He needs answers. He's looking for action, very impatient, and this agent's a little bit worried. But like a lot of upcoming companies now, they've implemented an AI tool, and this AI in particular, it's listening. In fact, before the customer can finish the sentence, the little helpful box pops up on the screen saying, suggesting response. The agent reads it, tries to use it, but it doesn't quite land, and the customer gets a little bit more upset. And now the agent is stuck. They're not sure what to do with trusting the tool, or should they trust their gut and try to wing it? In moments like this, really you should ask, what should this agent really do? Should they follow the script? Do they stick with an AI, or do they have to rely on common sense or instinct? And what this story, again, it's just really a fictional story, but as fictional it might be, it's probably very real for some of you here. And today, really, we're just going to try and unpack this particular area, because when you're introducing AI into contact centers, it's, obviously we're trying to help our agents, but is it really truly helping, our agents actually think better or respond better or just overall become better as human beings? Or are we just, uh, automating or technology washing around old habits? Man, that's still very present there, right? Now, we're going to start off with just a little bit high level overview around what does the promise of AI actually brings to us? And, with some research, there's a lot of data that shows us a lot of information. So firstly, McKinsey study showed that agents using AI, there's real proof here. it resolves customer issues 44% faster than those using traditional methods. Okay, so there's no doubt about it that AI is going to make things a lot faster for you, and that is proven here because the research has proven that there. Stanford and MIT also conduct their own research, and then they found a 15% increase in productivity with agents that are using AI tools of some sort. But here's the thing, that's mostly for agents who are actually, how do you say, getting used to the system. They are like brand new and just trying to get up to speed. But if you're an agent that's actually been in the business for a while and you kind of know the ropes, you're not going to be seeing that noticeable gains. So there's a big difference there. Now, the same research also found that businesses saw a 33% improvement in service consistency. That's because, likely the AI does have a lot of structured responses, does keep things generally on track. And that flows across into, a lot of the day-to-day stuff around faster after call work, less time customers spending waiting on hold, and then you have fewer repetitive tasks for agents to handle, manually. The other research also points to, how wide AI is being used. In about 2 years ago, Gartner, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of them, they were predicting in about 80% of customer service orgs will roll out some sort of Gen AI tool of some sort by the end of 2025. Now, it's not really a maybe, it's actually happening. And we're already midway through, midway-ish through 2025. And early reports and surveys conducted this year by a mixture of between Gartner, McKinsey, and PwC, they show a lot of strong figures trajectorying towards this particular figure itself. So, it is happening. And lastly, we zoom right out around the entire, I guess, economy and scale of it. Now, McKinsey's they did research around the super agency workplace, and they put a total productivity value of AI, $4.4 trillion, right? Look, that's a big number. Now, in plain English, this 4.4 trillion really just means it's the total unlocked economic value in things like time saved, more efficient decision making, faster onboarding, improved content generation, smarter operations, and better customer experience. But again, there's the big catch here, and points to one of the things I said earlier. These benefits, they, just because you put in an AI tool, they don't just automatically work. You do see these kind of outcomes if your team actually knows how to work with the tools and they use it really well. If they don't understand it, or if they stop thinking critically, that value drops off really fast. And this is reality. I actually had a conversation with some customers last week, and this is a big reality for them. So
Donnie,
AI.
No, I was just going to say we've been talking to a number of organisations that, particularly with things like after call work and the speed and efficiency claims that are across the board, and they've called out some concerns around, it's not a direct one-to-one relationship with a saving, like a minute saving or a second saving versus the dollar saving, right? That ROI calculation. And that there were, if you think about the after call work, for example, is something where they're not on the phone, they have a quick break, they have a breather. There's this whole other dynamic that's built into the environment. And they're concerned that, having this ROI that directly connects every second in an interaction to a dollar outcome is a false economy, right? Because people will still need to have a breath. They'll still need to have some sort of break, get their head together, etc. And that there is a concern that some of these claims that are being built into ROIs are just setting people up for failure right from the start, because there's going to be this continued pressure to achieve them. What are you seeing? So the concern was around behaviour. We're going to see people actually identify other ways to stretch out some of that. And if there's such a mismatch between ROI and actual, how do they manage that?
That's a great question, Fran. I think a lot of businesses are still trying to work that out, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just because we're all, or at least what I see, a lot of companies are still on this journey, just trying to figure it out. It's like, where do we go from this, and how do we actually know we're actually trending towards a particular goal that we need to achieve? But maybe I think the focus has been taken too much on the actual, I guess, the execution of the tool,
Yeah.
but more on like what we need to achieve as a dollar value or some sort of metric, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
probably the businesses are really just thinking about. So, oh, I'm going to have save $1 million because I have this AI tool. Doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like completely, I can resonate with that comment though. Um, so look, that's a great segue to this part here. So what actually makes an agent really good at their job? And I ask this question to all my customers. What actually makes your agent good? So, these days there's a lot of pressure to introduce, AI into daily operations. It becomes part of your mandate. If not, it's your transformation roadmap. You know, but just because your agents now have access to these smart tools, but does that really mean they're actually better at helping your customers or not? Are they actually contributing more meaningfully to your NPS? And are they actually doing more valuable work? Or are they just moving through the same motions in here? There are two things, at least what we know, what AI just currently can't do for humans as of yet. I mean, AI is going to change very quickly, but these two, the first one is really around human intuition and emotional intelligence. Really, it's about sensing what's going on and how do you respond with empathy. And the next one is contextual and judgment and reasoning. In simple terms, really, that what this means is it's reading between the lines and know what to do about it. And here's the thing, you know, the next generation of workers, and Fran, I might get you to, give your opinion. The next generation of workers coming to Connex here, they're going to be growing up with AI tools. If not, they're already using it, right? They're using auto suggestions, generate responses, quick answers, and they're going to be conditioned to use this as they will go into the workforce. They'll approach customer conversations in a way say, oh, look, I'll just click send and let the AI take care of it, right? But we all know that that doesn't quite equal to actual wisdom, that speed itself. AI can actually move fast, but doesn't make us better at the human stuff. Doesn't build empathy. What are your thoughts around this, Fran? What do you think?
It's an interesting one, right? Because, there's a whole lot of very general views on the demographics that are continuing to actually shift into the workplace. I would say number one, yes, they're using AI and they're turning up in organizations and our tools are antiquated versus what they use in their real life. And actually, sometimes that's a really big challenge. The other part of it is the understanding of navigating process and policies that are internal, regulatory components. Obviously, there's requirements across the board, right?
Yep.
So there's this mismatch between, but we know AI can just do this stuff, and yet it's not. So there's almost this whole relearning around, what are some of the risk appetites we need to actually make sure people understand? How
Yep.
do we ensure they recognize that broader regulatory landscape, which a lot of them step into, and
Mm-hmm.
just almost their experiences with the good components of AI without some understanding some of the other elements that are relevant in a workplace. So I think there's kind of good and bad with it. Equally, the need for that heightened emotional intelligence, I think it's actually a build now than it's ever
Mm-hmm.
been, because of this reliance. So
Yes.
if you think about what an organization now needs to do, and obviously on the other side of your page there, you've got a whole lot of other components that have got to be built in. I'm not necessarily seeing organizations step in and really think about how do they amp that compared to what they would have had to do 10 years ago.
That's right.
Because what's missing, they don't need to do so much of the tool learning. But yeah, they've got all these other soft skills or hard skills, as we like to think,
Mm-hmm.
that are actually more important than ever.
100%. And a lot of these things, I mean, the people don't really learn it, and we'll talk about this in a few slides later on. But it does take a little bit of mentoring, coaching, and reflection, right? You need human connection to kind of just glue everything else together. I mean, you can have AI take care of a lot of things like the policies and surfacing things that are going to be relevant, but judgment, more reasoning, that's not something that you can, get AI to do. But this is a very critical point that we're moving into, and this concept is called cognitive offloading. So it might sound unfamiliar at first, but it's actually not a brand new concept. In fact, us humans, we've been doing it for thousands of years, right? Here's an example. Fran, do you use Google Maps?
I'm going to
Now,
show I'm too old if I say yes to these questions, aren't I?
well, I'm going to be the same, right?
Yeah,
So if you use Google Maps, and I'm sure a lot of us do, I do,
I do.
who remembers the old days when you used to have a thick road atlas or map book?
Refideck.
Yep. You chuck inside underneath your car seat or in a glove box somewhere. You need to find places where you need to go, street names and the numbers. You had to plan ahead, look up the routes, memorize the names, and watch that landmarks and follow. Now you just plug in the address and follow the line, right? It's just so easy. That's what's called cognitive offloading, right? It's the shift of the mental effort to a navigation tool that does it for you. Even small things like spell check, grammar checks, and things like that, people just don't think about anymore. Oh, look, my computer's going to check my spelling for me anyway, so I don't care. And then we're starting to see a lot of this with AI and how it's being used. So instead of figuring out how to solve a problem, we wait for the AI to prompt us, or we prompt the AI to do it. And instead of recalling maybe policy or process, we rely on maybe real-time suggestions or whatever it might be. And look, don't get me wrong, it's efficient, it's helpful, and it's great. But it doesn't come without risk, especially back to my earlier topic, when the next generation of workers come into the workforce, they spent years using AI tools, writing essays, summarizing research, answering questions. They're arriving in this place conditioned to offload that thinking, not because they're lazy, but that's just because what they've been conditioned to do, what they've been trained to do. So what happens next? And then the research will point us to a few things that we need to be aware of. You've got things like skill decay. You've got over reliance on AI itself. If AI doesn't give them answer, do they know what to do? And then you have reduced critical thinking. AI just can't teach you that real human stuff, that empathy, tone, social judgment. And then it goes to that old saying, when someone jumps off the bridge, do you actually follow? So AI might give you suggestion, but you still need the judgment to decide if it's the right thing to do. And at least in my view, I think that's the muscle we need to protect in our agents, because once it weakens, it's really hard to get back, right?
Yeah, definitely. Johnny, there's a question here
Oh, sure.
from Erin, and it's specifically in relation to that tone. And I know you sort of covered a little bit there in the slide before. But the question is, does it mean that the AI can't recognize tone correctly yet and therefore respond correctly? So, for example, the example they've used here is thanks can mean many things dependent on tone, which is, really clear, right?
Yeah. So look, I think probably with the AI tools right now, tone is one of the more complex area that's a bit hard for AI to figure out today, right? Once we can get into things of like, I guess, if we really want to dive in, we'll say call it multimodal AI. So they can see, hear, and read what's actually happening. It has more data points to actually help you understand what's going on. Because for us as humans, tone is really all affecting all five senses. We feel, see, touch, hear, and taste, right? And if something's all that input data gives us the idea on how to judge what is right. If someone says, "Yeah, I'm fine," no, they're not fine. They're actually not okay, but they're just saying it. So the AI might think, yeah, it's fine, no problem.
And
Those
it's
kind of
why we see challenge in emails, right? There is no tonal differentiation. Like
100%,
yeah.
100%, 100%. Now that leads me to to the next part here. So because all that AI, the good stuff that AI can do, it still makes mistakes, especially, again, comes to things like nuance, tone, context. Now, if a customer, is calling your contact center, now they're frustrated about some sort of product or service, the AI might jump in with a, nicely curated prompt, a script, about warranty, coverage, and guarantees. Technically that might be correct, but emotionally, it could be quite tone deaf because the customer is quite frustrated, right? And if the caller doesn't want to know about legal coverage or something like that, they just really want someone to listen to them and acknowledge that they're frustrated. That's related to what we just talked about. AI just can't quite do that yet. Can't quite read how something is said or gauge that frustration. It doesn't quite pick up on sarcasm, and this is true for all AI models. Sarcasm is not something that you can easily learn. And then, if another example, and the agent is dealing with a sensitive situation, maybe, in call centers, you get things, people calling about, oh, look, my partner passed away, there could be a bereavement of some sort, customer going through some sort of hardship. If the AI comes up with some sort of tone deaf response, we appreciate your patience, we value your feedback. It's totally inappropriate. Those might be some, edge cases, but these kind of things happen every day. And so the concern is really just if your agents are trained to follow AI without thinking, what happens if the script is not right, and things will go wrong, and we can't outsource critical thinking like that. And the AI can assist to a certain extent, but it still needs us as humans to sense, feel, and respond like humans do. So it's the question about it's not about is the AI working now? It's all about are my agents actually prepared to step in if something does go wrong?
Johnny, there's a great question here from Simon.
Sure.
And he's talking about the muscle that you talked about before, really sort of flexing and building that critical thinking. And he's called out that he recognizes it in himself and that his spelling is shocking. Thanks, Simon. You haven't made any mistakes in this bit. But he can't, and I can't remember how to structure a proposal because I don't have that. I don't have to do that anymore. So translating that to a contact center environment, I imagine that what we're looking at is critical thinking of a customer's holistic situation, or that net effect, right, of all of their elements. What strategies are there to keep this alive?
Wow.
How do we keep building that as a muscle?
Well, look, I think for every problem there is a solution, and then all of us will have different ways of approaching it. I think personally, from what I've seen, you really need to have a good framework, and we're going to get straight into the assignment, so don't you worry.
Awesome. Perfect question, Simon.
We're getting there. And that's a good question. So the framework is actually going to help you, as a way to be able to overcome this, because there's no one silver bullet, but hopefully what we share today, it's going to help you. So now, look, agents, they're not born contact center ready. No one came out of school prepared to join a contact service, customer service contact center. Now, some people are just going to have a real knack of, for empathy or, conversations. And then there are going to be some who just don't really know what, great service actually sounds like. Especially if you're working in a high pressure context, within a contact center. You might have AI prompts helping you out and things like that, or telling you what to say, when to escalate. But that doesn't mean you actually have the soft skills to carry the moment. Those kind of things are just learned behaviors. They need to be mentored, coached, and nourished, but not just downloaded like a software update. AI might support your conversation, doesn't help you shape the character. And that's where I want to actually segue into our job for the ones, for those of you who are attending, your job as leaders, coaches, peers. If we want our people to grow into professionals, we need who reflect our brand and values. We need to invest in their development, not just the tooling of what we're going to give them, right? And I think this is really my main point. I think this is the most overlooked part of a contact center dynamic, is the coaching layer. We place so much focus on the actual agents, but what about the people that's supposed to guide and grow them? A lot of coaches, team leaders, supervisors were promoted because, they're just good at their job, right? They just know how to handle tough calls. They've learned, they made mistakes in the trials. They get results, but the coaching itself, that's a complete different skill set. And it's not just about knowing what to do. It's about how to teach it and bring the best out of someone else. And what the reality is here is that a lot of these individuals, they're not giving the tools or the structure to succeed in their role as a coach. We see things like very commonly inconsistent feedback, reactive feedback more than rather than proactive. Some might just use some outdated templates or whatever, or just winging it. And then your agents just come out feeling lost, and it's like there's no path to improve. Now, I genuinely believe that coaches deserve just as much support and investment as agents. And if we start fixing this, it's going to start making things better. And like I mentioned earlier, you need a proper framework. Not just any one, but the right one is something that's grounded, that's repeatable and sustainable, and you can easily put into action. Now, let me paint a picture just to help you understand this. Coaching without a proper framework. It's like going into your pantry, rating it, putting a whole bunch of ingredients together randomly, sticking to a bowl and shoving it into the oven, and expecting a master level cake to come out. That looks like a good cake, by the way. But in reality, it just doesn't work that way. It looks probably something like this, right? You might get something out of it. It's not going to be consistent. It's not going to be repeatable, and definitely not going to impress your guests or whoever's poor soul is going to eat that. And that's exactly, I feel, what's happening in a lot of contact centers. There's a lot of good intention, don't get me wrong, but without any structure, no recipe, no clarity on what success actually looks like, and that really just brings me to one of my favorite quotes by General Gordon Sullivan. Hoping that something will work out, that's not a strategy, right? Hope is not a strategy, especially when we're talking about coaching, performance, supporting frontline teams. Hoping it comes together, it's not enough. We need to be more deliberate, and we should really design for success. Okay, so that's a bit of a mouthful. We're going to now introduce another poll midway through. And this time, we want to ask the audience, what are your biggest challenges today when it comes to coaching your agents? A, limited time for structured coaching. B, inconsistent or reactive feedback. C, lack of coaching training for frameworks. D, difficulty accessing performance insights. E, unsure how to coach effectively, especially in an AI-enhanced environment. Now, actually, I have to, while people are answering this, I have to take you back to a time. I used to work in a contact center a long time ago, and I was a team leader at that time. And coaching for me, look, I was really challenging to say the least. Live coaching specifically. Now, I was, one of my KPIs like, you got to physically sit next to an agent and watch everything they're doing over their shoulders. And I'll be honest, I absolutely hated it. And I always believed that, if you're have someone physically next to you watching everything you do, it changes the way you behave, maybe not always in a good way. And it really made it hard for the agents to feel comfortable and be, in the, comfortable zone. And I think it also affected the performance. But for me personally, what made it difficult was I didn't have enough, I guess, the right tools to coach effectively. There was no insights for me, no particular framework. I mean, I had what it makes a good leader, those kind of things, trainings. That's great. Look, don't get me wrong, that was good. But it didn't really help me to get the most out of my agents. So most of the coaching I did was based on gut feeling, best guess, maybe what I remember from the last call review, very reactive. And I never felt confident. What do you think, Fran? I mean, do you hear that from some of your customers that you work with?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to your point earlier, we've gone through, I hate talking about COVID, we're so far beyond that. But if I think about organizational structures, we saw some organizations really grow, we saw others drop and then suddenly re-emerge. And, the term I use often is accidental leadership, right? And I don't mean that in a way other than we threw people into these roles. We didn't give them the tools or the support they needed. And, the comment you made earlier about, really going by gut feel and not having that structured view, we've suddenly got this opportunity, right, with tools and AI doing analysis for it. But actually, have we invested in helping people understand what are those insights telling you? How do you systems thinking approach what it's telling you? Really joining the dots. And then have we given you the tools? Because remember, we've also got the challenge of remote working. Have we
Mm-hmm.
given you the tools that mean you're actually great at having, well, one, the coaching conversation feed component of it as well? So, as you say, there's lots of great frameworks. I don't know that we really sort of invest in making people understand, the brain psychology, firstly, around coaching and feedback. But secondly, you suddenly have information at your fingertip that is unlike others. You don't have to sit and watch someone do something anymore. You can, kind of build in a different model. What does that look like and how have we supported you to get there? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's super timely. Anyway, the results of this are going to be interesting.
Ooh, here we go.
And look,
Time.
it's pretty similar across all of them, but time's definitely the top one there. Hey.
Time. Yep. I definitely struggled with this. I had a team of like 7 or 8 salespeople underneath me. I struggled for time to just even give them proper feedback. And if I was lucky, maybe once a month, but really, I mean, that's not enough, to be honest. But it's very, very interesting to see time as
Johnny,
the top one there.
we know people that have 15 direct reports
Well,
in all
was
of their
probably lucky
team.
then.
Yeah, and to think about, and it might not be that it was a sales environment, but
Yeah.
equally think how stretched and constantly we're pushing more and more on that leadership role to be able to actually make this effective. Yeah, it's tough, right?
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of people out there, sharing the same pains, but yeah, time is something that we can't, effectively use. But in any case, we're going to help try and answer that with the next part. So look, we talked about the frameworks from before, right? So in businesses, especially in contact centers, I said earlier, we can't rely on hope. That's not a plan, it's a prayer. And while faith has its place, what we really need is a proper framework. So I wanted to introduce what I call, kind of like a blended coaching model framework where you're using the best of both worlds, where you're using AI tools, that can support and help your teams improve, and also a framework, that will help you understand how to use the data from these AI tools to be able to coach better. Now we park AI on the side for a moment. Now I want to look at this framework called the OODA loop. And if there's anything I want you to remember from this presentation, it's this framework itself. The OODA loop was developed by a Colonel John Boyd. He's a U.S. Air Force fighter pilot, military strategist. Originally, it was designed to improve the fighter pilot's decision making in fast, high pressure aerial combat. I know you're probably thinking, a Top Gun and stuff like that. So, think about that next time when you watch it. So nowadays, this framework is applied to many businesses and leadership, strategic thinking, even sports settings as well. And the idea here really is that you use this loop now as much as you can. You go and cycle through it. The faster and more accurately you can cycle through and run through this particular framework loop, the better you can actually adapt it to uncertainty, and you can win when things are changing. So because that's what a lot of us face every day when we're doing business. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So let's go through step by step how this framework actually can be put into real life situation within the contact center itself. So first of all, just want to make sure everyone understands we're not here to teach you how to train your agents to be jet fighter pilots or your leaders. Some of you might be dreaming of being one. That's all good. But we're going to give you the necessary foundation to coach smarter, right? The first letter is O, which is observe. What you're doing really here is you're gathering information about the situation and understanding what is actually happening, and you're identifying potential issues and opportunities. Now we kind of like drill it down to a contact center context example. Now what we're doing, looking in front of here, some snippets is just the outputs of some AI tools, right? You got coaching, the coach receives a real-time alert about maybe a negative sentiment that was detected on a live phone call from one of the agents. And then you got a coach that digs in a little bit more to see that the alert might be something about escalation risk. Could be regarding a refund or cancellation, what it might be. And then you also got another piece of information where the coach starts to monitor the actual live transcription, the actual live call of the agent and the caller, just to gather more inside information in real time, right? So you're just trying to dive deep into observing and figuring out and gathering information first. Now, after you're done observing, you go into an orient phase. Okay, so taking what's happening and trying to make sense of what you've observed. You're not, you're done with the information gathering, but you're trying to understand, what are there any patterns that are starting to show up? Have we seen something that's, something similar that's happening with this particular agent or a customer? Are there any trends, pointing to a broader issue or something more situational? The tools like, AI scorecards, you can highlight things like recurring behaviors. Is this agent, for example, showing signs of consistently underperforming with a particular procedure? The AI CSAT summaries or scores, it gives you a pulse or snapshot on how how customers are responding. Maybe even the AI summaries in the past of the particular caller, just trying to make it easy to quickly scan through and know what the customers have been talking about and the key details across the conversations. So together with all these tools here, they're really helping the coaches and supervisors, building a sharper picture of the landscape. And it's this step, you're interpreting and connecting the dots and then recognizing what's really matter, which will set the tone for the next part, which is decision making. Then when you understood the situation, you've taken everything in, the thing here is really not to jump into conclusions, but you really need to choose what is the most constructive action plan that you really need to take right now. Okay, what that could mean is in this particular concept, do you step in or you choose not to step in? So let's say, if you're a coach, you're doing a live monitor, you're listening to a call for your agent. Do you hear that the signs showing signs of that call could be going to escalation? Now you've already kind of understood what's going on with the agent style, maybe the customer's tone. You have to decide, do you, maybe whisper to the agent, give them a little bit of support, let them try and work it out, or do you take over the phone call, you barge in, or do you trust the agent and believe that they're going to be able to work it through? Maybe just send them a little message, of support, like internally. And it doesn't really just end with, this particular phone call. Maybe, you spotted some sort of coaching opportunity and a post call, and where a tool, for example, like maybe combining a playlist of, curated recordings, things like that, you can tag and save that call and, or similar ones and turn them into little bite-sized learning modules and then easily share it with the agents to revisit. And those kind of things are going to help you because, I'm almost certain that a lot of us, and I have listened to a lot of, thousands, hundreds of recordings. We've come across at least a good handful of really good gold star interactions, that's worth sharing and, giving it to others to be able to learn from. And when you decide well here, that means you're understanding what actually will help your agents grow. And that's going to ultimately improve the customer experience at the same time. The last step of this OODA loop is act. Now, this is where we get to put things into motion. You've got the signals, you made the call. Now it's time to act on it. Now, this could be, for example, maybe you want to give some timely feedback, doing a quick playback for the calls with the agents, or just tracking progress together with the tools. With like we talked about before, AI's the scorecard trends, CSAT trends, leaderboards. The really main thing here is that you don't leave the coaching moment, hanging about like, I don't know, what should we do next? It's really is about making really clear, actionable, and linked back to something that the agent can actually improve on, something that they know how they can measure themselves. My coach, golf coach, told me this once. He said, like, it's made a huge impact. Say, if you can measure something, you can absolutely improve on it. So if you're not measuring it, you have absolutely no idea if you're actually improving or not. And then when you do this regularly enough, it becomes part of your rhythm, not just something extra of how it's just really how part of the team gets better. So that's the OODA loop. Okay, no overly complicated, but if we take a step back, the real goal here is not just to run through the cycle, without really thinking or just checking a few boxes. You're really trying to use the framework to create an environment where agents, think of them like your athletes, are going to be equipped to make good calls when pressure is on or when the AI is not working. And that brings me to another good example who knows a thing or two about performance under pressure.
And
Good old
before we
Steve.
move on to this next part, I've just got a couple of comments and questions here from the group.
Oh, sure.
I know, Sylvia, you've asked about the regulated industry. I'm going to leave that to a little bit later, so I promise we haven't lost that one. But Erin's asked, so again, if I look at the framework you've just taken everybody through, for me, the first thing that's important for organisations to think about is actually revisiting what it is you're trying to get out of whatever program it is. How does QA play into it? What does coaching look like as a structured and formal process within your organization? And the model you've taken through, that's one model. There's loads of models, right? You've just got to pick one and then think about where are those different components where AI can actually support how you get and what you get to inform the conversation, right? So it's still meaningful, it's still building that muscle, so to speak. But Erin sort of said here, so will Dialpad use AI to speed up the OODA loop agents without turning them into passengers in the decision-making process, which I really like that, right? Because if you think of any one of those components could have literally just pushed to an agent, which we have seen fail dismally, without that human component as well from a leadership perspective, and really thinking about, well, what's this going to aid? How's it going to be received? What is it telling? And how
Yep.
will it actually help strengthen the skill set of that individual? So,
Yeah.
again, I like that analogy of, keeping them in the decision-making loop as opposed to passengers within.
100%. If we go back to that poll we just did, the last one, it's like we saw like the highest rated one answer was that people just didn't have time to be able to, implement some sort of effective coaching. And I think with, at least from Dialpad's perspective, we want to make communications easier and simpler and to empower coaches. We're using AI to really, exploit the whole efficiency around it. Like, for example, like reviewing phone calls or recordings. Like, I can guarantee you right now, those who are not using some of the AI tool right now, when they're doing it, the return on investment of you spend half an hour reviewing one or two calls, and over a month, how many do you actually review? Over how many phone calls you actually get? What's the effectiveness and the value you get out of it? It's so small. But if you're using AI to be able to fast track this a little bit better and improve your time savings, that actually, adds in the process to actually help you gain better data and value out of it, right? So absolutely. There's a lot of, I think, at least where Dialpad's concerned, we're trying to give tools to really try to improve this particular OODA loop itself to be able to make them, and make the process a lot simpler and easier.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Grant's just got something here in relation to, more general in nature. Obviously, you guys have a lot of customers across a lot of verticals, but all of them in that customer service space do really similar things. It might be different content, but it's similar. Are there best practice or good practice tools or frameworks that can be shared about how to get started with the likes of real-time assist, how to coach well, what does a good base set of analytics look like? You've just taken them through a model that you guys see works really well. Do you have the same sort of thoughts around feedback models and things like that as well that you promote or talk about or see work well with your customers?
Yes, absolutely. I think because no one customer's contact center is going to be, can be easily replicated with another person, like live assistants, those kind of things, because everyone's going to be unique in that sense. But I think it's really about aligning to particular, I guess, small objectives that they want to achieve. I like the phrase that one of my colleagues used the other day. He says, like, we're looking for micro wins here, right? Let's not try to boil the ocean about like, we're going to use AI to transform the entire world. We're not doing that. We're
And it
going
won't
to
happen
just
overnight, remember?
No, it's not. We'll look for micro wins. Like what is going to help you get that small gain sustainably over a long period of time, right? It's not just one-off and we're done with it. No, it's small gains incrementally over a long period of time. So if you think there is one particular method of doing it, we advise you this is how you use it. You think about your process, you input, you try it, you win, great. If you don't win, okay, that's fine. Reiterate, go through the loop again. Let's try and figure out what we can do to improve next time. But just don't stop that process. That's going to be really important there.
Yeah. And there's just one last thing here. It's a comment, we talked about demographics earlier. We've got new generations coming in, AI, ChatGPT, most of them are using it for uni.
Yep.
They come in, and we all know, right? We can read something that's been written in ChatGPT and you can generally tell that's where it's been written. So the question here from Willis is in relation to this new generation being right across what that looks and sounds like, is there a need for strategy to really address the need for genuine impact of leader to frontline coaching, given that an AI generated response, if it's overused, will lose its effect?
No, 100%. And I think that's also a question that a lot of us, I mean, not just Dialpad, but anyone, the AI industry itself is like, AI is getting so much smarter every day, and it's becoming more and more almost human-like, to a point where you always question like, no, why do actually humans exist? No, we still have a purpose. And I think, again, it goes back to at least what I still believe is it's going to take a long while before AI can actually sound, feel, hear, and touch like an actual human being. And the soft skills, we talked about like empathy, judgment, more reasoning, common sense. That's something that you can, I guess, most people, when people are conditioned enough, they know what is actual AI and what's actual human. They can actually tell. Just like how you and me were interacting right now, we know we're not AI representatives in the Zoom meeting. No, we're actual human beings. Yeah, are we? Ooh, that's a good question. That could be a good question. So yes, look, it's all about, I guess, what are the values you're trying to instill into your agents, and how are they going to be able to, drive the values and the experience that you want them to be able to impact on the customers who deal with them, because they're going to be your frontline people, right? And you don't want them like Steve Hansen here. Coming back to my slide, it's like one of the greatest quotes he's said. Our job is to create an environment where your players make good decisions under pressure. We don't want robots. We want thinkers, right? And now you swap the players for agents, and the coaches for team leaders. You got a blueprint for what a contact center really should be striving for today, right? Now, we're going to start wrapping it up. I think we're coming to time. Now, I want to shift our lens a little bit away from the tools themselves and towards the people who are going to be using them. Now, it's really timely that we're talking about this whole new generation of workers entering the workforce. They're going to be growing up using these AI tools in their education, their lives. They're going to help. It's going to help them, do great things like research, problem solve, write. Maybe sometimes not having to think too deeply. But they're not going to be walking to roles, whether it's a junior level entry contact center role or maybe a leadership, whatever it might be. They might be carrying those same habits over, right? And the question here is that, are we going to try to build teams that can work with AI? Or you're going to build teams that are just going to follow the AI, whatever the AI says, right? The quote you see here really just sums it up. If we're not careful, we'll have highly efficient teams, no doubt, who can click the right buttons, but they're going to struggle when the AI isn't helpful or when a real human moment is actually needed. And we really need intentional skill development when it comes in, and we need to coach for more than just system knowledge or AI usage. I think we should really continue to coach for more soft skills and judgment and decision making under pressure. Right, and that's the difference between building AI savvy agents and building critical thinkers who can really thrive with or without the AI itself. I want to kind of just wrap this into something a bit more concrete about one of our customers who are applying the AI tools, and they're called Disrupt Digital, Australian-based business. They're a fast-paced marketing agency. They run about 60 people in the company. And their bread and butter is Google Ads management, and they do a lot of high volume outbound calling, testing, client servicing, all the really good stuff. And they rely on their agents to have good consistent messaging and really sharp communication. their problems. Before they came to Dialpad, they didn't have coaching and QA was really minuscule. We talked about earlier is that you spend so much time just evaluating a small subset of calls when it doesn't actually represent the actual how the company actually performs, and what a lot of agents what they were doing never got reviewed. No, it's not that because they didn't care; they just didn't have the time or the tools to scale it. And then when they started using Dialpad, they use things like AI life coach cards, AI scorecards, playbooks, CSAT. They're seeing a lot of over almost 90% of agent activity reviewed, just from a small fraction to that much. So that scale is huge. That means every agent has support in the moment of feedback, and they're not just guessing. What good calls look like. They know exactly what they're getting. They're getting good clarity, and visibility consistently. And all this impact, it goes beyond the compliance of metrics, and it really creates an environment where quality conversations become the norm. And for them, that's actually the real win there. So as we're coming to the end of this webinar, I want to leave you with this. So we talked about cognitive offloading, decision-making frameworks like the OODA loop, to the way we coach, but it really comes down to one thing, and that's people. AI can do a lot for us. They'll help us to become faster, no doubt, more consistent, and things like that. It can't replace the role of a good coach. It can't teach empathy. It can't build judgment. It can't connect humans on a level who's someone who's struggling, whether it's a customer of yours or your agents. So the question I want to leave you at the end of this webinar is, how are you actually going to coach differently in the age of AI? Because coaching now is not just about feedbacks or check-ins. It's about how we shape thinking and how we create a space where your team can grow, not just follow orders, right? And we move forward, the goal isn't to throw out the old ways of what you're doing. It's to blend what actually works. Structured approaches like the OODA loop, the AI tools, and the human-led development. And I think that's how we actually build teams. We don't just adapt to AI, but we should try to thrive alongside with it. So when you go back to your teams after this, try to reflect on how your coaching practices have changed or haven't, right? Start small, pick one conversation, just one person at a time, and then you'll start to approach things a bit differently, because I think that's how this shift really begins. And lastly, if you haven't heard of Dialpad before, Dialpad is an AI-powered communications platform. We're built to connect you and your teams, customers in one place. We use voice, video messaging, contact center, using our proprietary real-time AI. And for our customers, it's not really just about having calls and meetings recorded or transcribed. It's about enabling your agents, coaches, leaders to work smarter with live AI. We've got instant transcriptions, searchable call history, insights, and actually drive better customer experiences. So, if you're trying to improve your first call resolutions or making your coaching a bit more consistent, or getting a clearer view about what's happening across your teams, our technology is designed to help you, act faster, adopt sooner, and focus what really matters, which is building better human connections. And that's it. I think we're just right on time.
We are right on time, but I promised Sylvia I was going to ask you this question, so I'm going to.
Sure.
Pardon me. Sylvia's asked, in a heavily regulated and trust-driven industry such as finance, how can we ensure the human element in AI-driven contact centers continues to foster customer confidence, especially during emotionally charged interactions? And I think for me, everything you've gone through today is about ensuring the tools are simply supporting the human side of it, right? Having the right leadership conversation at the right time, having the right skills in your leaders to actually be able to coach and build that judgment and enhance that judgment. Because Sylvia, regardless of whether it's finance or superannuation or banking or, whichever part of a regulated environment, the interaction still relies on that building of confidence and trust. And to get that, you humans need to, number one, be great at their job. Number two, have strong empathy and listening skills. They need to be able to apply those soft skills across the board, because that's what builds the reputation and the trust and confidence, right? How that interaction is perceived as being delivered. So, Donnie, I go back to the comments you made earlier about making sure that the people we have delivering services are not just robots. They are humans. That builds
That's
that
right.
confidence and trust. I don't know. Have you got anything else to add to that?
I think you summed it up really well, Fran. I mean, there's no silver bullet, I think, to really try and solve everything. But if we stick to, I think, what really makes us human, especially with what we discussed in today's conversation, eh, that's going to help you, manage those things that AI can't do. Those emotionally charged interactions, AI is not going to help you fix that.
Yeah.
You need real human, I guess, coaching to help you build, better skills to be able to handle those kind of things. But yeah,
And then the confidence and competence in the agents to actually deliver that service on behalf of you. Like it still comes down to the interaction and how your
100%,
customers walk away from it, right?
100%.
Um, yeah. Anyway, it's an exciting time and exciting opportunities for us to be pushing this, into environments. But I think if I could say one takeaway, it's the importance of having clear strategy around what that human focus is going to be, and how in incremental stages you can utilize the great tech around you to actually make that deliberate and better every day, enhance it. But it's got to be part of a bigger strategy, right?
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, guys, we have just gone over. We tried 2 minutes over. Thanks all for coming along. Great session as always. And Donnie's going to have the hard job of picking the best question from the group afterwards. So, as always, we will send you out with the recording. We'll send out some slides from Donnie and a way that you can get in touch if you've got any further questions. I'm sure Donnie would love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of your
everyone.
day. Thanks, Donnie. Talk soon. Hey.
Thank you.